Welcome back, everyone. For today's video, we are going to be taking a look at some games that I played in the recent Arena Kings event on July 3rd of the year 2024. Now, Arena Kings is a 2-hour arena event. You can play against many great players in the field, and in this specific Arena Kings, there are two games that I want to take a look at. Now, both of these games I played against Faustino Oro, currently the youngest international master in the world. I believe his nickname is Fausti in the Spanish community, and he's someone that I have actually played against online in the past. Now, Faustino Oro is 10 years old. I am 36 years old. There is a 26-year age gap, but one of the great things about chess is that age does not matter, or so they say. At any rate, let's jump right into the action. So this game that I'm playing against Faustino is the first game of the Arena Kings event. He has the white pieces and I have the black pieces. So the game starts out with the move e4. I play the move c6. We get d4, and now I play this move g6. We have the move knight f3, d5, knight c3, bishop g7, and now Faustino plays h3. Now, the reason behind Faustino playing h3 here is that white wants to stop black from putting this bishop on g4, after which the center can be targeted very easily. Let's just say you get a random move like a3, bishop g4, let's just say bishop e2, for example, takes. Black is simply up a pawn in the center of the board. So when Faustino plays h3, he's stopping me from playing bishop g4, and now this knight on f3 is going to always support the pawn on d4. So I trade the pawns on e4, I go knight f6, he takes, and here I decide to take with the e pawn. Now, this move might look a little bit weird to some because I am stacking the pawns on top of each other, but in the long run, I want to play f5 and open up the super long diagonal for the dark square b. We get bishop e2, castles, and now I play knight d7, and here Faustino plays the move bishop f4. Here I go rook to e8, we get c4 played, and now I play the move knight to f8 with the idea of maybe going bishop f5 to develop the light square b, or knight to e6 targeting the bishop on f4 as well as the pawn on d4 at the same time. I also can try to play b6, bishop b7, and c5 down the road, so there is a lot of flexibility in the black position. We get queen d2, I go bishop to f5, and now Faustino plays this move rook fe1. Here I play the move queen d7, we get rook a d1, I play rook a d8, and now the move bishop e3 is played. Now, this move is maybe not the absolute best move, but it's a logical decision by Faustino because he has to decide how to improve his position. Now, he could go bishop h6 here, trying to trade off the dark square b's, but if you look at this fundamentally, with these pawns stacked on top of each other and a bishop in front as well, this bishop simply has no scope here on the g7 square. So why would you want to trade off a very active wooden shield here on f4 for this bishop on g7? So we get bishop e3. I play g5 here. Now, this move is a little bit aggressive, probably not the best move here. I think during the game I also considered bishop e4 or the move b6 as well, but at the end of the day I decided to play g5. Faustino plays queen b4, and now I go b6. Plays knight d2, and this is a move that definitely is not best. At this point, it's very tricky for white to figure out what to do because it's not clear whether you want to push d5 here, allowing c5, whether you want to try and move a knight backwards and go bishop f3. White doesn't have obvious moves. So at this point, I was feeling pretty confident with my position. So we get knight d2. I play knight to e6. Faustino goes knight to f1, and now I play this move bishop g6, and here he plays the move d5. Now, this move is not the best move here, but at this point in a blitz game, time's starting to trickle down a little bit, and black has basically what we call reaction moves. So no matter what white does here, most of my moves will be a reaction. So if white goes d5 like in the game, I either go c5 or knight to f4. If white plays a move like, let's say, knight h2, for example, again, I can play f5 or this move c5 as well. So basically, my moves are very straightforward, white's moves are not, and if you don't want to burn a lot of time on the clock here and you want to be very precise, you sort of just pick a plan and go with it. So we get d5, and here I play this move c5 pretty quickly, and this is simply a mistake in the position. What I should have played here was a move knight to f4, because after takes, let's say white trades on c6 here. White is maybe very slightly better due to black having the tower of power on the f file, but the two b's are actually going to become very active here on the diagonals, and the knight on f1 actually is kind of blunted by this pawn on f4. So I should have done this, but instead I don't. Instead, I play the move c5, hoping that Faustino will think, wait, this is a free horse here. The queen's under attack. Takes. You can do the count. White has two bishops and a knight. Black has two bishops. White has an extra horse and should win the game. But if white does take the knight here on e6, I can sack the queen with queen takes rook. And after, let's say, takes here, if white takes a queen, I take his queen, and now I have a rook for a knight. And if white moves the queen away, I can simply move my queen back. And in this position, I have two rooks and two bishops versus a rook, two bishops, and a knight. So the rook for a knight, black should be much better. So Faustino plays move queen d2. Now I go knight to d4 here, and this is a move which sort of signifies a modern trend of chess. In the past, I almost certainly would have considered other moves like knight to f8, maybe a move like queen c8 or queen c7 here, but in the modern age of chess with Stockfish and a lot of computer programs, they are showing us that in many cases you can sacrifice material, try to be aggressive and play for activity, and sometimes it doesn't matter if you sacrifice a pawn. So here I go knight d4, sacrificing a pawn on d4, and now I play the move f5, queen d2, and the move f4. Now the reasoning behind this is that even though I'm down a pawn here, I have these two b's on the super long diagonals, and I figure the activity should make up for the pawn in the center. But here Faustino plays the move b4, which is a great decision, trying to take advantage of the fact that here white can potentially mask two passed pawns going up the center of the board and win the game. So I play the move queen a4, and this is, I think, a mistake, maybe not. We got queen a4 here. Actually, I thought queen a4 was a mistake. In retrospect, I thought I should have played like bishop f8 or queen d6 to stop the pawns from marching up the board and the pawns turning into an avalanche. Instead, I go queen a4. We get c5. I play queen a3, and here Faustino plays the move rook c1, and now I play this move a5, which simply loses the game. Now, it's interesting to note here that the computer says after bishop b2, black is very much in the game. I'm kind of wondering why I didn't play this move. I thought that white could go something like c6, takes, and he'd be winning. But if white does in fact play this way, I can sack the rook with rook takes bishop, attacking the queen. And after c7 and rook f8, apparently black is simply much better here. If white queens the pawn here, I can take this queen, and then I take this queen, and I win the game. And if white plays queen takes rook, and d6 here, apparently after a move like h6, queen to e7, and bishop d3, black is winning here. But in a blitz game, very, very difficult to spot this. Obviously, white has two pawns going up the board very, very quickly, and I think this is not realistic. Now, in a classical game of chess, I think there's a very good chance I could take 5 or 10 minutes and find this, but in a blitz game, I simply don't think this is very realistic. So after rook c1, I end up playing this move a5 instead. Just to highlight the best line for white after bishop b2, by the way, because it is not c6, white can go bishop to f3, and after rook takes e1, b takes c5, bishop c3, queen c1, and queen c5. Let's just say rook d1, bishop b4. Material is balanced here. Both sides have the same amount of pawns on the board. I do have the two b's versus the bishop and a knight, so black is probably very slightly better, but it is not something that you want to write home about. It's just very slightly better. So instead, I play this move a5, overlooking the fact that Faustino can now play this move c6. And now, even though I'm going to get back this pawn that I sacrificed earlier, the two connected passed pawns turn into an avalanche, and you cannot stop an avalanche with a tower. So after c6, I play the move bishop b2, sort of a desperation move. I could have taken on b4 as well, but after a takes b4, let's just say c7 here, rook c8, and something like d6. The pawns are pushing up the board really fast, and white will win the game. So after c6, I play bishop b2, Faustino plays c7, I take the rook, he takes my rook, making a queen, I take, he plays rook takes c1, and now white is completely winning as white has an extra knight on the board. So I play the move a b4, rook c6, b3, takes, Faustino goes bishop c4. At this point, the rest of the game is pretty straightforward. I could resign here, but obviously it's a blitz game, and you want to see if your opponent will make a blunder. So I go queen a4, and now Faustino plays queen c3, another good move. Obviously, what I was hoping for was queen to d4, which would be an epic blunder, because then I can sack the queen for the rook, and after takes here, I have a rook for a horse, and I should win the game. So after queen c3, no ideas with queen takes rook, as the d file is empty. So I play queen d1, we got bishop b3, queen b1, queen f6, I play rook e8, bishop c4, b5, rook b6. Now I go queen f5, forcing a trade of queens. At least now I'm going to reach an endgame and not get mated right away. But again, if white has good technique, white will win the game. And even though Faustino is only 10 years old, he is an international master, and his technique should be good enough. So we get bishop takes pawn. I play rook e1, d6, rook d1, f3, king g7, king f2, king f6, king e2. I play rook b1, knight d2, rook b2, d7, king e7, rook b7, and now I play the move h5. Here Faustino goes king d1, and here I play this move bishop d3. Now I could of course play this move g4 to keep the game going, but after takes in this position, let's just say a move like knight to c4, now the knight is active. It's going to either e5 or a5, followed by knight c6, which will support the pawn thrust to d8, and here it's simply hopeless. Instead, I play the move bishop d3, trying to pin the bishop here. If white were to move the bishop, for example, I could trade, take on d7, and now there are some chances to draw the game as I have one pawn for the knight. But after bishop d3, Faustino makes no mistake. He plays the best move in the position, which is this move rook to b8. And here I resign the game as this bishop is still protecting the pawn, and there's no way of stopping white from pushing the pawn and making a queen on the d8 square. So a fantastic game from Faustino. Of course, if I look at it from the pure perspective, I should have spotted this bishop b2 move. But the most important thing that I would say about this game is when we look at it, the overall broad picture, is that Faustino understood the concepts. Now, obviously, this is a blitz game. It's not a classical game. But when you look at the games these kids are playing today, the most important thing to see is, first of all, how good is their understanding of piece play and piece development, pawn structures as well. And Faustino really did understand this middle game very well. I think it would have been very easy here after, say, a move like f4 to turtle and play something like b3 here, be very, very positional and slow. And here after, say, bishop c8 and bishop c5 or queen d6, there's a good chance that I would be able to stabilize my position, and I don't think I would probably lose the game. But Faustino did play his move b4, trying to take advantage of the two connected pass pawns in the center to create a pawn avalanche. Very, very good understanding of the plans, and he wins a very nice game. So this was the very first game of Arena Kings. Now, much later on in the 2-hour arena, I would once again play Faustino again with the black pieces. Second and final game of the event. So Faustino plays e4 once again, and this time I decide to play the move d5, and now we have the classic center counter or the Scandinavian defense. Knight c3 is played. I go queen a5, d4 c6, knight f3, bishop f5 here. Idea is to play e6 here, develop the other b. First of all, the light square b is outside the chain. If I go e6 here, bishop very passive. From f5 in this position, it always will have targets on the diagonals. So we get bishop c4, e6 now, trying to develop the other b. Both b's will become active. Faustino goes bishop d2. I play knight to f6 here, and now he plays the move knight d5. Here I go queen d8. We get takes, and now the move queen e2. Now, many years ago, someone can probably fact check this when they look at my games, but I believe it was in Gibraltar around 2005. I actually had this position in a game against, I believe it was Zahar Efemenko in Gibraltar. It's a game that I did lose, I think, when all was said and done, but this is a position that I have played before in classical chess. Now, the funny thing about that is when I say 2005 or 2004, whenever it was, of course, my opponent, Faustino Oro, was not even alive. That was 19 years ago, so it's another 9 years after that before he was even born. So I play knight d7, we get castles. I go knight b6, bishop b3, queen c7 here. My idea is, once again, I have stacked pawns on f7 and f6, but I want to castle to the queen side, put pressure on the pawn on d4, and also maybe try to use this open g file for the rook as well. Faustino plays knight h4, I go bishop to g6, and now we get to move rook e1, and I decide to castle. Here Faustino plays g3, a nice move here for a couple of reasons. Probably I'm never taking this pawn, but nonetheless g3 stops me from winning the pawn on h2. It anchors this horse on h4 as well, and it also allows white to go for bishop to f4, pressuring the queen on c7. So very nice triple purpose move. So after g3, I play the move c5. Now, I probably could have played this move rook takes d4, but in a blitz game, it's very hard to play this sort of move for a couple of reasons. First of all, white could try bishop f4. And after rook takes f4, I guess after takes, none of these lines with bishop e6, I guess, quite works. I can ignore it with king b8, which is kind of random. But say I were to take, for example, you're never really sure in a situation like this, are you actually much better? Are you winning or are you not? Now, obviously, this is another very difficult thing in blitz chess, or I shouldn't say obviously, because most people watching wouldn't understand what I mean by that. But in this situation, I have a couple of options here. If I use like 30 to 40 seconds calculating rook takes d4, and I'm unhappy with a line like bishop to f4 or a move like bishop to c3, for example, with the two b's targeting all the pawns, then I will have spent 40 seconds and I will have wasted this time, and I'll revert to another variation. So it's a very tough spot. Do I spend the 40 seconds, try to do a perfect calculation, maybe even a minute here, or do I just move quickly on instinct to try and keep my time in check? Now, ultimately, I try to keep my time in check, and I simply play this move c5 here, trying to activate the dark square b, but also maybe putting pressure on the c file. Faustino trades on c5, and now he goes bishop f4, and here I play the move queen c6. Now we get knight takes bishop, I take back, and he plays the move h4. Now, position here is actually pretty balanced. I have a really nice pawn chain here, these four pawns together. White can't easily push and create a pass pawn on the king side. At the same time, I can also try to play a5, a4. The one issue with this situation is that this is a game in Arena Kings. Now, in Arena Kings, you're trying to put together streaks and win a lot of games in a row to get more points and try to win the event. And I think during the live stream, as I said, I was wondering how exactly can I try to win the game, because it's a very simplified position. So I go a5, Faustino plays a3, I play knight to d5, and now he plays the move bishop d2. I go a4, and he plays the move bishop c4. Now, one thing that I really like about Faustino's play in this game is he's not showing that he's afraid. He's not being timid and trying to be very, very passive here. It'd be very easy. I think a lot of people would simply trade the bishop for the knight, trade here, go rook d1, queen c6, and then play something like queen d3, not queen d3, sorry, because that would hang up too. Something like queen d2, or maybe even queen to e1 here, and try to just simply make the draw. Faustino here shows really, really good understanding when he plays bishop d2 and bishop c4 because he does keep the two Bs alive. Now, I also mentioned in a recent video that one thing I was a little surprised by was in his recent event where he made his final IM norm, there was a game that he played against one of the GMs, I think it was Fernando Valenzuela, where he actually traded away the bishop pair in a situation where I thought it was kind of unnecessary. So here he's actually showing really, really good understanding. He's keeping the bishops on the board and keeping play alive. So I go bishop d4. Idea here is that once again create the wooden shield, guard pawn, target his pawns, but also maybe try to move the queen and put maximum pressure and create some right triangles as well. Faustino goes bishop a5, I play the move knight to b6, rook's not under attack, and now the rook guards the bishop on d4 from being captured. Faustino plays bishop b5, I go queen c5, bishop b4, and now I play this move queen e5. Now here once again Faustino tries to keep pieces on the board with the move queen f1, and this is a very slight mistake. Now Faustino could have traded here, and actually I think in this position this is supposed to be very good for white, because after bishop takes e5, I think there's some, is there f4? Computer wants some c4 c5 to win the pawn, I guess, on a4, but even something like bishop e7 or f4 also looks very good. But Faustino goes queen to f1 here, and now I decide to take this pawn on b2. We get king b1, and I must trade the rooks on d1. Currently, my queen is under attack. If I move the queen away, I lose the bishop in the game. I can't take this bishop because then it would be a Botez gambit, and I would resign. So I trade the rooks on d1, and temporarily I'm up a pawn here, but the big issue is that these Bs are very, very active. My B is also a little bit loose here where I can easily target my queen, but the show goes on. So here I play the move knight to d5, and this is a big mistake. Now Faustino misses his opportunity when he plays the move queen c4. When I was actually playing this game, I realized that white has a way to win the game with this move f4 targeting the queen. Queen again cannot move because I lose the bishop, and after knight e3, queen d3 takes rook d8, and let's just say queen e2. White has two Bs for a rook, and white's king is actually very safe here with this nice wooden shield on b4, and white should probably win the game. So after f4, the line that I initially thought was good was the move knight c3, but as the computer shows, after takes here, white can play rook to d3, attacking the queen. I have no squares left to guard the b, and after I play a move like queen to a5, targeting the bishop, white can tickle the king with the bishop d7 check, and after king c7, king takes b2, white has an extra bishop on the board, and white should win the game. So Faustino misses his opportunity in this game. He plays the move queen c4, I go king b8, we got f4, and now I'm able to play the move knight c3 because after takes here, first of all, there's no bishop d7 checking the king, but also here after rook d3, I would simply trade the queens on c4 and go rook to c8 hitting the bishop. So Faustino plays the move queen takes queen, I take, he plays rook d7 here, creating the classic kebab on the 7th, but now I'm able to play this move rook h5 targeting the bishop and activating the rook from the h file where it can swing over to c5, d5, b5, or a5. Faustino goes bishop takes pawn, and this move is probably fine objectively, but I kind of don't love it because I think after a move like bishop d3 here, for example, it feels like this rook is not super active. If I ever go rook d5, I mean, white can take on f7, but even trading here and playing f5 will lead to a draw with the opposite color Bs. So Faustino plays bishop takes a4, I go rook a5, bishop b3, takes, bishop a2, of course, the only move to stop the classic lobster pincer checkmate with rook to a1. So he goes bishop a2, now I play e5 here, Faustino takes, I take back with the bishop, creating the classic wooden shield, which is guarded by the pawn, and it covers all the diagonals. Faustino takes on f7, I take g3, he goes bishop d5, and now I play the move b6. Here we get rook b7, king c8, and Faustino makes a huge blunder here with this move rook takes b6, which effectively loses the game. Now it's still very difficult for white to play because black does have one extra pawn. I've got this really nice wooden shield that's supported by the pawn on e5, and I can try to push f5 or g5, and I think based on the time situation, probably I would have been able to flag Faustino regardless, but in a classical game, I think there's a very good chance that he would draw this. So Faustino plays rook takes pawn, and now I'm able to play rook g1 check, king a2, rook a1 check, king b3, and I have the dagger, which is rook to b1, checking the king here and winning the rook on b6 after the king moves and I take. Black simply has an extra rook on the board and will win the game. So after rook to b1, Faustino resigns this game. I even out the score in Arena Kings 1-1, but it's not so much about the score as much as it is about the great talent and the potential that Faustino has. As you'll see from these two games, Faustino was very much playing at an even level with me. He saw a lot of great ideas in both games. The first game, seeing this b4 c5 idea, taking advantage of the central pawn avalanche. This second game as well, being very, very aggressive, understanding how to use the two b's for most of the game. Sure, he missed his chance to win with f4, and probably I missed some opportunities as well, but the general flow and the understanding in a blitz game where you have to play more on instinct as opposed to pure calculation was extremely impressive. So having said that, we split the two games 1-1 in Arena Kings. I think generally speaking, I foresee a great future for Faustino. I expect him to become a GM at the very least, if not 2600 plus. Beyond that, I think it's, time will tell. Of course, who knows what his progress is going to look like. He could shoot up straight to the top, he could slow down, very hard to judge. But if he does not get to at least 2600 over the board, assuming he consistently plays and focuses on chess, which I assume he will, I would be extremely disappointed. So great stuff from Faustino. I would also add that there was a recent video I did, maybe not recent, but like probably 6 months ago or maybe a little bit more. I played Faustino in regular blitz. I think I adopted him like 10-0, and it felt like I could, for lack of a better way of putting it, I didn't have to really concentrate. I almost felt like I could just beat him at will without having to concentrate. And as you can see from these two games, it's a very, very different situation, as now I have to concentrate. And even then, he's a very sharp, very dangerous player. So on that note, I hope you guys have enjoyed this video of the two games that I played against Faustino Oro, the talented rising junior player from Argentina in Arena Kings. If you guys are not already subscribed to my channel, make sure that you smash that subscribe button below, and we'll be back soon with some more great recaps and YouTube content. See you guys. Have a great rest of your day. Bye.